Good evening. It is June 8th. We're at the district office, and this is the Board of Education meeting of the Hyde Park Central School District. At this time, I have a motion to enter executive session to discuss confidential matters pertaining to negotiations and personnel matters, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We're now in executive session. Okay. Thank you for being patient with us. At this time, I have a motion to return to open session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
You've got smart. You don't even sit down.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. There are no agenda additions, are there? Oh, there is one? Which one? You're trying to trick me again.
Oh, sorry.
See?
You have to, this has to be because it has to be one.
Oh, because we don't have 2/3 of it.
Right.
All right. So which item number is that?
It's 10.4.
10.4. All right. We're going to remove 10.4 because we don't have 2/3 of the board here, which is required. Yeah. So other than that, may I have a
Doug?
motion? Yes?
I'd also like to propose a 15-second time limit to 13.1.
13.1. Is that my favorite one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm not queued up yet. What's
Upcoming events. Yeah.
Did you say a 15?
Yeah. Well, let me.
Yes, I did. That's mostly in jest. I withdraw the motion.
Well, I think I can handle 3 lines fairly quickly.
Uh-huh.
All right. See, you go away for a meeting and look what happens.
We need to name a timekeeper.
We may.
Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the adopted agenda, please?
So moved.
Have a second? Any discussion there? All in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. That brings us to Pride. James, what do you got for us?
Actually, I have quite a few things.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Is it more than 3? Wait a minute.
Yeah, there's a lot more than 3. So these past few weeks have been pretty great. One of our juniors, Ty O'Halloran, won a congressional award for art. He was a recipient for this award and received notice of it from Congressman John Faso. And Ty's painting will, which is of the Statue of Liberty, will be on display in the Capitol, Washington, D.C. And he's going to fly out on June 29th for a reception.
Excellent.
As they put it up.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's in our lobby.
Yeah.
It is.
Right now it is.
There's a copy of it.
Yeah. So we have also had a few students participate in a Memorial Day ceremony at the home of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Those 2 students were in band, and William Moss and our salutatorian, Chiara Giammatteo. They played the trumpet and the song Taps, which is, I think, a familiar song with like flag ceremonies. And this past Friday, our FDR had its annual mock DWI. It was a very eye-opening experience with many of the instances of driving under the influence of any substance and even distracted driving, such as in texting. In the beginning, I was in attendance. A lot of videos were showed where students' lives were affected by the decisions that the ill decisions that they made while driving. And then towards the end of those videos, there was one that our senior class had created. Some volunteers had come up to like act out a video in which there was like a house party, and then some students were driving under the influence. But they did it so that they kind of created a connection with the students of the class of 2017, since our prom was going to be later that night. And then they brought us out to the front soccer field, and they had the whole acting there, and the whole DWI was well put together. The students had done a really great job with the acting. I myself was very kind of shocked a little bit. And there was also a helicopter that touched down right on the soccer field. It was pretty cool to see the helicopter, but not cool that there was the DWI. So it was really it really hit me kind of. Yeah. And so after that experience, the state qualifiers had been happening the Thursday before and that same Friday. We did have 5 athletes qualify for the state meet, which is happening this weekend, starting tomorrow at 12 p.m. I think it's up in Endicott, Union Endicott High School. So the 5 athletes were Sarah Trainer for the 2K steeplechase, and then Sam Prentice, Marquise Shelby, Ramasaj Williams, and Jamali James for the 4x100 meter relay. So I hope they do well, and I'll probably see them because I'm going to be heading up there, so it's going to be pretty great. And then proceeding state qualifiers this past Friday, there was senior prom at Fiore Borghese. A lot of students had a great time there, and I myself did as well. It was pretty interesting to have prizes and glasses given out to the students. I don't think that's ever happened. Well, at least to a prom that I've attended, it hasn't happened before. It certainly was a great night. And yesterday, our band performed at Vanderbilt Mansion for Music in the Parks organization. I wasn't in attendance, but knowing the students that are in the band program and their passion for playing, I have no doubt that they performed well. So.
It was a great performance.
It was.
Yeah.
From both the middle school and the high school.
And the high school, yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Did you cover the golf? I was trying to get my computer up.
No. Golf?
The state championships were held over last weekend, and the 2 contenders from the area finished one behind the other. It was Stotterman from Spattenkill and Jeff Peters from Roosevelt. Jeff Peters, if you look at the standings, looked like he was 10 positions down or 8 positions behind him, but actually if you looked at the score, he was only one stroke below.
One stroke, yeah.
So there must have been a large number tied at the Stotterman level to justify, but they both had a very good showing.
Awesome.
Okay. Sure.
I just didn't know if anybody wanted to, I mean, certainly there were a couple of board members there. Denise and Dan and I were all at the 50th celebration at North Park Elementary, very well attended by the North Park community. Margaret was there too, there was some others. Aviva was there, so, oh, there we go, another one, Jim was there, Dan, and
He was there.
so, and Roger was there. Okay, I'm going to leave somebody out because I just left half the people in the room out. A lot of people were there. It was great. David Roosevelt was the keynote speaker. Eileen Karen. There's only been 3 principals in the 50 years at North Park. The son of the first principal spoke. Eileen Karen spoke. And of course, Lisa spoke, and we presented Lisa with some flowers as she's not only the 3rd principal in 50 years, she's retiring. I missed the first time since I've been here. I was out ill, but the athletic ceremony was also at Villa Borghese, and I heard that it was a very good ceremony this year again.
Very nice.
And
So
they were some comments on the fact that they're turning over the reins as we go. There was a new master,
Master of Ceremony.
master of ceremonies, Brian
Brian Howling.
Halling, took
okay.
over from Kevin Hart.
Okay.
Brian, and did a very good job.
Okay.
And there was some goodbyes to Pat.
Oh, nice. Oh, good, good. I was very sorry to miss that. And then this past Saturday, I attended the Relay for Life. Some people were also at the Relay for Life, and it was a beautiful day. It was the first time we hosted the Northern Duchess Relay for Life in conjunction with the FDR Interact Club. We were a little disappointed the FDR Interact Club wasn't on the flyers, because the reason why the Relay organization got the discount, because it was a partnership with the FDR Interact Club. So we'll make sure that if they want to continue to get that discount, they credit that club, otherwise they'll pay full price. But it was a good turnout, a little bit different this year because it was the Northern Duchess. It was not the camp out one. But as I said, a beautiful day and a good turnout. Nice to see the community at large getting to enjoy our athletic facility. And for anyone who's been to a Relay for Life, it's a very moving ceremonies throughout the day.
Okay, anybody have anything else? No? Do you have anything else to report?
For Superintendent's report?
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things under Superintendent's report. We received a letter from the Hyde Park Rotary. For the second year in a row, the district donates the time of one of our drivers to the Touch-A-Truck. The Hyde Park Rotary does the Touch-A-Truck event as a fundraiser for other nonprofits. The money goes to the Hyde Park Community Garden, the Hyde Park Food Pantry, Hyde Park Library, Statsburg Library, the whole list of Meals on Wheels, everything. And the Hyde Park Rotary approached us a couple of years and said, if we're going to do a Touch-A-Truck, we think it would be great if we had a bus here. Originally, we were thinking about sending one of our backhoes or something, and long story short, we sent a bus. The bus is a really big hit, both for preschoolers and for students who are in school that get to go on a bus and just, I don't know why it's so exciting to go on a bus when you take one every day, but it is.
They got to go in the driver's seat.
They get to go in the driver's seat. I bet they get to beep that horn, too. This year, the driver was Phil Johnson. He was a big hit. So there's a thank you from the Hyde Park Rotary for supporting that event. It's a nice community collaboration. The town of Hyde Park is having an open house on Monday, June 19th from 4 to 7. They asked if we would distribute flyers. They'll make the copies to our children and families. And it's a community meeting to come share ideas for the future of Hyde Park's town center. What types of businesses, what type of community amenities, and what should the future town center look like. It is basically an invitation from the town of Hyde Park to an open house. And we're posting this on the website and distributing the flyers that they printed out for us. Last but not least, not a formal presentation, but a very quick update from Elliot. The board supported a capital project to renovate some bathrooms at the high school, and just like a 2-minute update on the status of the capital projects that are closing out and continuing through the summer.
Promise, I don't need both minutes.
Okay.
So, okay. Very quickly, good evening, everybody. To touch on all of our outstanding capital work, the Haviland Heating project is just at final closeout right now, so we hope to have those final cost reports in this month. The FDR bathrooms received SED approval on March 18th. We had a bid opening on April 24th. Unfortunately, we had no responsible bidders interested in the project at that time. Could be a bunch of reasons why that is. However, without speculating, just moving forward, we're looking to rebid the project at the end of summer, beginning of fall this year, with the intent on doing the work over the winter. Hopefully, it's a slower time for contractors. We're hoping to get more interest in the bid, and we're going to cast a wider net. With small-scale projects, we tend to keep them local because people are reluctant to travel, but maybe given the time of year and the climate, we'll spread the love a little bit out further and see if we get some more responses for the off-season, the construction off-season, which would be the winter months. And that project, just to remind everybody, we have until June 30th of 18 to close that project out. So we have the entirety of the school year to get it done. We're going to shoot for that middle of the year in the winter months during the breaks to get that work completed. And then we have our $1 million controls project that was approved it was approved not this past vote, but the 2016 budget vote. That work is currently under SED review. They're going back and forth with the architects and engineers to finalize the design spec, and we plan on starting that work this summer, continuing it through the fall and winter, phasing it after hours, second shift work throughout the early part of the winter months, so that we plan on having that substantially completed before it gets really cold in the middle of winter. But that, we're having continuous meetings. I'm meeting with them again tomorrow. So as that schedule tightens up, I'll be sharing that with the group as well. Any questions?
Thanks, Ally.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, what about we had a water treatment project?
Yes, I'm still getting the materials together on that, so that's still under review. And the reason
Okay.
for that is this is the North Park well, to be clear with the group. The board took emergency action to approve that project based on the regulatory nature of the project. We were being forced into regulatory compliance with the Dutchess County Department of Health, which SED recognizes as the governing agency for that system. The engineers that are designing it for us have been going back and forth with Dutchess County on the design specifications, and they wanted to have that locked down before it gets sent to SED, because we can't change it once SED approves it. So they want to make sure that because Dutchess County Department of Health is the regulatory agency, that they're okay with the plan. And once that approval is finalized, it goes to SED for approval. So it's still in that in-between process right now.
Is there specific issues with the plans, or is it just a matter of the time to get it done?
No, sir, it's just like anything else. There's engineers on both sides, and they have to agree on design and scope, materials, et cetera, et cetera. So we have our retained engineers who are working with the engineers that work for Dutchess County. We're then going to get to that agreement level, and then we'll send it up to the engineers in Albany and hope they agree too.
But at Albany, they got to go through the SED approval for that?
Yes, all capital work in school property has to go through SED. SED does kind of take a back seat to the Dutchess County Department of Health because they are the ones who regulate us in terms of compliance for water systems.
So they're going to look for the agreement before they even start looking at it from that
Right,
perspective?
because if Dutchess County says we're, or if SED says you're approved to put this work out to bid, and then the county says we don't want you to do it that way, it changes the scope of the project, and then it changes the bid, and it has to reset the process.
Which is a long process.
It's a bit tedious.
Has SAD agreed to expedite approval since it is?
Yes, and that's, I had, depending on how this news comes back over the next couple of weeks, I may be standing here in a couple of weeks talking to you about where we're going from there. But we do have sort of a verbal commitment from Roseanne Groff at SED that she's going to work with us, understanding that we're trying to comply locally before the state gives us the stamp of approval. Okay.
So we don't need, Ellie and I talked, and we were going to move the water one to June 22nd because we didn't have enough. But if we have any new information on it, we'll come back again on the 22nd. But we won't plan on it now unless we have anything new to say.
Understood.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure,
Oh, boy,
you got
I'm
the-
sorry.
We'll have instructional update on the strategic coherence plan.
So, good evening. This is actually part of the board goals and also dovetails nicely with the report that you got on the strategic plan last week. So I'm not going to go into lengthy explanations. This is the update on the instructional portion. If you remember from last week, we integrated much of the instructional work with the facilities work, but it wasn't comprehensive, so this is an opportunity to push a button and have nothing happen. Let's try that. Still not happening. Okay. Wait, maybe is this thing on? There we go. Okay. Those on buttons, I'll tell you. It has been a long week, so my apologies. So, as you know, We had a district leadership team, and I've just listed here the members of the instructional portion. I include the students because from time to time, the students were involved in the instructional planning. This is a representative of 3 of the bargaining units, and then some additional staff members to volunteer to make sure we fleshed out the whole committee. As you know from several presentations, we are guided by our vision and our mission statement. It hasn't changed in a couple of years. We readopted it and still feel the value for our school district. One of the things that the Strategic Planning Committee did this year as well was to review the profile of a graduate. And we feel that this is still on target, relevant, and completely connected to our instructional goals. So I'm not going to read those. Once we determined that we were going to move forward with a strategic coherence plan, actually we were just looking to do a strategic plan that would support our mission statement and or help us recraft one. We were looking for some guidance. We knew we were moving into the 21st century digital age, and we started to look around for some possible consultants who could work with us. A couple of board members and a couple of staff members looked at a few people, but in particular, we went and saw a representative from an organization called EdLeader 21. And we did determine at that point that that was the organization that we were going to work with. Jonathan Costa, he even came to a board meeting a couple of years ago. The nice thing about EdLeader 21 is it's not a for-profit. It's actually just a collaboration of districts who want to get together and do this work. Right now, the current numbers are in 32 states. There are 190 school district members, combination of public and private. The rubrics that we use that will become our assessment tool for measuring the 4 Cs were developed collaboratively with these member districts. We weren't a member at the time, but this is a collaborative process. So it's a great experience. We're becoming greater partners with the colleagues who are also members closer to home here. And so we value that membership. The cost of membership is $5,000 per year, and that gives us access to use the rubrics to measure the 4 Cs: creativity, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking. It also provides us with a professional development cost, and while the cost is $15,000, it approximately, depending on how much you use, the amount that a district this size would spend on professional development far exceeds this, and part of what we get out of this is a turnkey trainer. So our professional development plan for next year includes several training sessions that will be run by people like Jen and Aviva and several others in our school district and some of our teachers who have been through the training. So it's a train the trainer model. So there are years that the professional development cost could be very low, and other years where it will be right around that budget item. Again, we have a $90 million budget, and if you do the math, $15,000 to lead our strategic plan is, someone can do that percentage for me while I'm still talking. It's very minimal.
0.006.
And what's that, a 0.006?
Yeah,
And again, what's good about this is it's an organization of high caliber school districts who are dedicated to doing the same work. So a lot of the strategic planning goals right now are to say, how can we operationalize our plan? And we'll talk about it in a minute, but while we've adopted the 4 Cs to really move forward, we selected critical thinking skills as the one to zone in on first. And part of what we want to do is not just reinvent the wheel. We have several teachers in the room. You could walk into any classroom and see some excellent critical thinking work going on. What we're doing by adopting the critical thinking rubric is flipping the script and saying we're not going to let the content drive the program. The content's a given, but we want the students to exit that content or retain that content because they're learning critical thinking skills and application skills. So it's really about changing habits of mind and dispositions about how we plan our instruction and how we assess our instruction. We'll be looking for some consistent implementation. We'll be talking about what are the attributes that we want to look at that we can say a Hyde Park graduate has mastered the skills in critical thinking. We want to inventory where it exists, where we're already doing it. Again, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We have excellent examples in every classroom. We're looking at our curriculum writing process and making sure that we incorporate the 4 C's as we revise our curriculum. And we're certainly planning our professional development accordingly. We're aligning our fiscal resources. Again, we're putting our money behind what we need to do to accomplish this strategic plan. And that includes our human resources as well as our fiscal resources. So again, with the Ed Leadership training model, we not only get the training, but then our people that go to the training can come home and retrain others. Train the trainer model. So a little bit about the background and the timeline. In the year 2015 and 16, that's when we joined Ed Leader and determined that we would use the 4 C's as the foundation. In the 16-17 school year, this last year, it was our first year of rollout. We started with a rollout on opening day. On the following dates there, we had introductory overviews of the 4 C's of various kinds so that we ensured that all staff at least knew this was the direction that we were heading. It's good to tell people where you're going if you want them to get there. So this year was just the initial introduction. And this was also the year where we started to align our systems. So our professional development plan was revised. My learning plan, which is the tracking system on how we collect our data on our professional development and how people sign up for events. There was no connection to the My Learning Plan application for professional development and our strategic plan. It's all done. We'll start to use that on July 1st. It's completely aligned. And so is the curriculum writing template, so that all curriculum that starts a review this summer will be aligned to the strategic plan. So that's pretty much what we accomplished this year. This summer, for the first time, our summer school teachers will be incorporating the critical thinking rubric into our summer programs, K through 8. For next year, in addition to continuing the training for the staff, we're ready to bring the students in addition to those who were on the district leadership team and had some other collaborations with it, to bring them on board and say, this is where we're heading with your instructional program, and also to bring parents in the community on board. So we'll be having some assemblies for students, and we'll be having some forums for parents. And then we'll continue our training on the critical thinking rubric for the staff, and also get the staff to provide some direction on how do we move forward on using this rubric as an assessment for learning. What you have here, there's several definitions of critical thinking. And this is the definition that Ed Leader 21 uses. These are the skill sets that somebody who has mastered critical thinking embodies. What's important about this is that every piece of research about career and college readiness, and every time I go to Global Foundries or every time I go to IBM and they want to collaborate on how do we partner with schools, they always say the number one thing we're looking for is critical thinkers. In the workforce, whether you're going into the trades or the military, they will hands down say we need people who are critical thinkers. The content that you receive through your K-12 education is a given. We're not throwing the content out. But the research also shows that if you deliver content in a vacuum without mastering critical thinking skills or any project-based learning or any connection to a thought process, the memorization of those facts is gone in a nanosecond. Actually, it's a little bit longer than a nanosecond. So this has been known for years. So most educators agree, and even a lot of the revisions of the New York State standards now reflect embedding critical thinking and collaboration, because that's how you learn. Again, memorization is short. Dovetailed with the concept of focusing on critical thinking skills as your foundational approach to content, our digital tools also serve as a facilitator to move us in that direction, because it's not about what kind of technology you have, it's the access to global thinking, it's the access to multiple sources of content that are now at your fingertips that didn't exist before we had the tools. So for many of us in this room, or I'm just kidding, yeah, for many of us in this room, we were taught via lessons that looked like the column on the left. You know, read the chapter, do the questions, hope you do well on the test, maybe be prepared to explain your answers. And the digital tools provide a vehicle where you can have students think more critically about the content and engage in the content in a more meaningful way. Many teachers designed lessons on the right, but they were far and few between because it took a long time and it was hard to organize the curriculum in that way. But now students have access to primary sources. They don't have to get up and leave the classroom to go to the library and do research. They can find primary resources. They can find historical narratives. And by learning, by reading multiple documents and comparing and contrasting and using those critical thinking skills, students will retain and be able to apply lessons that they've learned by learning the content to other areas. So again, it's not about the digital tools, it's what you can do with them to access a greater level of information and do more of the compare and contrast work with a lot less legwork on the teacher's part. Still need the teacher absolutely there, and we have so many secured websites that we know how to get students to content that is valuable. Not to mention that one of the skills we teach students is how to distinguish between a reliable resource and a not so reliable resource. And that, in a nutshell, is where we are on our continuum. You can take a look at the full strategic plan. You'll see that we are in our year 2, or we're approaching our year 2. So I've just described to you where we're going next year as far as rollout with students, families, and really rolling up our sleeves with the staff with the critical thinking rubric itself.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question. I just want to make sure that I understand this, because we've been talking about it for a while. But these 4 C's, this is a way of attacking curriculum that can. So the curriculum that we use is the Common Core curriculum, but this is a way of approaching that.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So we haven't been for a while, but I just want to be clear that everybody understands that we're not sticking to these rigid modules anymore.
Oh, no.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, this is kind of going the new way of approaching all of the.
Yeah, a lot more academic freedom on the part of teachers to say that use the content that we know the students need to master, but the skills you're shooting at are the skills identified in the critical thinking rubric or the collaboration rubric. There's a short video here. I don't know how to use this thing to point to it and click on that link. Is that clickable?
I don't think so.
No.
Oh,
I'll look at it. at Leader 21?
If you go to, I was hoping to be able to show that now. Roger, do you know how to use that thing?
Where's the,
Yeah, where's the
That's a
laptop?
Do you know how to,
That's a PDF.
do you know how to
This is
get
Done it.
that website
Well,
up on
but we
there?
can, but
Correct,
she
but-
can't. Yeah, he can.
I've got
do
our
it.
number
She can
one
adapt- she
volunteer
can
in the
Excellent.
district
Minimize
to
that and then just go online.
get me online and,
Thank you.
Oh, look, something popped up.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Roger.
Hi.
There we go.
Roger!
Hey, it's like being at the voting booth all over again. We had a computer that was crashing. It's like, oh, thank God Roger's here. Okay, so, and I think we can just like make the screen bigger. I think I know how to do that one.
the thing that looks like an X in the middle,
Next stage, Dave.
To the right.
Video.
over to the right.
Oh,
Screen,
this
there you
one.
go.
Okay. They changed the icon, he said. Okay, so, thank you. Thanks, Roger.
I did not authorize this. I did not authorize this.
This helps put everything all together.
Human history, the primary focus of education has been acquiring more content knowledge. And the only way to get it is through the teacher, right? You don't have to do that anymore. Today, content is ubiquitous. It's free. It's on every internet-connected device. And it's growing exponentially and changing constantly. No longer cares how much our kids know. What the world cares about is what they can do with what they know, which is a completely different education problem.
When we were growing up, parents and teachers talked about work ethic, that you really had to want to work hard. But it turns out in the 21st century, work ethic isn't good enough. You can't just intend to work hard. You actually have to know what to do next yourself. You have to be motivated and you have to have knowledge about what is the next step I ought to be taking.
If we can compete with other countries, it's got to be in producing citizens capable of innovative thinking. Not citizens capable of industrial production, not citizens capable of assembling iPads. We're going to lose if that's what we think we're producing. The old blue-collar industrial model of education is already gone. We're already living in its wake.
So what does everyone look for? They're looking for people who can do critical thinking and problem solving. In order to get thinking. Critical thinking and problem solving are really table stakes today. They assume you've got that. What everyone's really looking for are people who can do their job, but invent, reinvent, and re-engineer their job while they do it.
A recent study by the RAND Corporation found out that among the state tests that are used for accountability, only about 2% of the items on the math tests measure higher order thinking skills. 98% of the items are, can you apply an algorithm and do the procedure? The problem with that is that quite often people who can identify a particular problem format and crank out an answer, or find and guess an answer from a list of 5, which schools spend a lot of time on, cannot reason their way through a mathematical application in the real world.
We have to prepare students to be resilient, to be thinkers, to be collaborators, to be communicators. We have to prepare them in such a different way.
I think there's a sharp trade-off between what can be tested easily on a large scale and what's important in life. Think of a different universe where you're asking kids to invent a science experiment, write a creative essay, come up with an interesting historical perspective on an event they care about. Far more important challenges for a kid, far more aligned with what they need to do in the real world when they graduate. Much harder to test and very hard to say, you got a 731 on this experiment, somebody else got a 627 on the experiment. So that's the existential trade-off we face in education.
Creativity cannot be taught, but it can be killed. Because to me, creativity and entrepreneurship and in the spirit to innovate, they all are human nature. We can enhance it, we can make it better, but more importantly, a lot of times we discourage by forcing people to do what other people think is right, to force people to find answers, not ask questions, to force people to shoot for answers very efficiently, not asking to explore.
There's some really big questions here is, what should we be teaching? Who are our major stakeholders? So getting that consensus among all the players, the parents, the teachers, the business community, the politicians, of this is what we want our end product to look like. This is what we want the students coming out prepared to do, not just to know. Until you get that aligned, getting tough doesn't matter, because you're getting tough on what?
I would argue that beyond the morality of this issue, it's simply a matter of self-interest for all of us. Because if we don't train and teach and really support children from all these backgrounds, they become our responsibility or our fear, source of our fear. Because we have to teach them about what we consider most important in our society. This is not about something that would be nice to do. This is about the very essence of our future. This is about who we become as a nation.
I don't know how to stop it now. Okay. We don't have another presentation, so I think we're good. Great.
Thank you.
That was hopefully ties it in a little better.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Grant.
Wait, I do have a question.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
So kind of like, has this program already been kind of started, or no? It's going to be started, or?
Yes. Here?
Mhm.
Yeah. So next year, and in fact, we're having some of our curriculum rewritten over the summer. And so there will be some areas where people are ready to mobilize and really start to say, okay, so when we deliver this content, we want to make sure that at the end of these lessons, we've hit these critical thinking skills, that the students not only know the content, but they exhibit mastery or progression in their critical thinking skills. And certainly we can share the rubrics that measure the critical thinking skills. There's 3 sets of rubrics. There's an elementary band, a middle school band, and a high school band. And so next year, the professional development plan will be that when our teachers get together for training, they're actually going to co-design some lessons that they can utilize throughout the year, and then take a look at them at the end of the year. So next year is really just the start of it. So it'll take a couple of years before it's really embedded into all of our classrooms. But what we want is to make sure that next year everybody has an opportunity to design at least a whole unit with the critical thinking skills as the basis, then teach the unit, and then reflect on how it went. And the pockets of people that have been involved in this are really excited and ready to roll, but we've got about 343 teachers, so it'll take us a couple of years to get to a more systematic approach. But next year is the first year where there'll be some very intentional lesson design and then learning opportunities for students.
Okay.
Sorry you missed it. But
That's all right.
with that said, I know that you had several classes where critical thinking skills were embedded. It's just a matter of putting it at the forefront and intentionality. You didn't get to where you are with, you've got some great skill sets going. But I do feel like some of the students that are on the district leadership team, the 3 students, they're very excited for their future peers, and they were our biggest supporters. They said, yes, we feel that this is the direction instruction should be going, and it would have made much more sense for my learning. That was the feedback from the students on the committee.
Thank you.
Okay. We're good? Okay. At this time, I have a motion to enter public participation, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion there? All in favor? Opposed? At this time, if anybody would like to address the board? No, I guess. Can I have a motion to close public participation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That brings us to board discussion on the first consideration of the new French textbook and digital attachments, I guess, as well.
So I will start by saying we took into consideration not only the profile of a graduate and the one-to-one initiative that is currently being rolled out at Haviland and will be rolled out next year at FDR. And also the critical thinking rubrics as we came together to determine criteria for the French textbook adoption. What the French teachers are proposing is the text Discovering French Today. It is a hybrid text. I'm going to just answer a question before it's asked. This copyright is 2013, but what you have is a teacher's edition with the level 1A, 1B, and 1, which is really 3 years worth of French in that teacher's edition. This is the 1A text, and I'm showing it to you very purposefully. 10 years ago, French text might have been about 1.5 inches larger than it is. I want to call your attention to the label Hybrid Value Plus bundle, because although we are purchasing the texts, and this little bad boy is like $95, what we're really purchasing is a hybrid value bundle, which means that we have online resources and online access to, in French in particular, a tool called a home tutor, where kids get to hear other people. There are characters in each of the books, teenagers, Jean and Jacques, and they speak the language. Well, they do. They speak the language. It's electronically delivered to students. It can be used both in the classroom and at home, so that in the past, 20 years ago, when you took a foreign language, and it was called a foreign language instead of a language other than English, you only heard your teacher's voice. That might have been the only voice you heard. In the digital world, you now have access to French friends like Jean and Jacques and whoever, and you also have access to French advertisements, group projects around creation of videos, and the kind of project-based learning Greer was just describing, using the target language. So that is why the copyright on the text is 2013. But what we know and have been told by the publisher and by teachers using this text is that the online materials are constantly in update. And if you look, there are actually 2 publishers, Holt McDougall and Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, that have joined forces. So all of the language resource kits, if you will, are growing from this same electronic base of materials in the target language. So, for first consideration, I am recommending, on behalf of the French teachers, Discovering French Today, Hybrid Value Plus bundle. Do you have any questions?
Go ahead.
Anyway.
How long will the online resources be supported?
6 years.
How does that compare to the normal tenure of one of our textbooks?
Well, so here's the problem. We have not replaced the French textbook in over 10 years. Typically, we keep things for about, in particular in the languages, about 12 years. That's kind of the average. We just got a new Spanish book after 12 years. It's 10 years. We're getting the new French. The 6-year agreement they will allow us to extend it if we want to extend it, but what we purchased was a 6-year agreement, and that's as far out as they will go on the part of the publishing world. So it's shorter than I would like. Like, what would I like? I'd love it to be 10 years, and in 8, if we wanted to think about replacing it, we could come back to it, but 6 is as long as they're going to go.
How long does the hybrid how long would a hybrid package for one student cost relative to a purely physical package?
This is so interesting. It doesn't matter whether we get, it's like the book itself, by itself, is $97. With the Hybrid Plus package, it makes it, I want to say, $98. So basically, they're charging us 99 cents for the Hybrid Value Plus, because they know that this isn't really the value. The value are the online resources. And what's challenging is that if we, I would like to just buy class sets of 30 of these. It would save us about $20,000. But if we do that, then I only get 30 online student accesses. So I have to buy 120 of these for French, French 2. I have to buy 100 of them or 90 of them for French 2, and so that everybody can have access. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense.
I understand what you're describing.
Correct.
It sounds to me like we're being driven towards a subscription model for our textbooks.
Probably.
And it also sounds like our average textbook expenditures year to year are going to go up as a result. And here's why I'm thinking that.
Probably.
If we spent an equivalent amount of money for the textbooks we're replacing, and they lasted for 10 years, then we spent 1/10 of the cost per year. Now, we're only getting 6 full years for roughly the same money.
Correct.
We're moving in the opposite direction from the rest of the world as the rest of the world goes digital. I'm not blaming you. I'm simply
making a point.
Chagrined by the trend.
Industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, I'm going to ask, is there any way that we can go to some sort of collaborative website or open source textbook or some resource on the web that doesn't cost us what a textbook would?
Like Khan Academy, for instance, as a French unit.
We could do that. We could do that. However, in terms of like a French unit is not, it's not going to be enough. What teachers use Khan Academy now to supplement what they're doing, but it's not the basis of what they are. Okay. It's not enough. It's not enough for 144 lessons over the course of, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, over the course of 4 years. One Khan Academy unit is not enough. What we're working on building through the use of the critical thinking pieces are resource banks that are created by teachers. That's some of the work that we're going to do next year. As with the critical thinking rubric at its base, developing the curriculum based on the UBD template and then putting resources together electronically, digitally, so that teachers can access and use them. Some of like, I'm going to take languages in particular. Some of the challenges are we can access YouTube videos of commercials. We can access and use free sources such as YouTube. But that takes hours and hours and hours of teacher time. And I'm not saying teachers aren't willing to do it. I'm just saying that is a process over time we need to develop and put resources together.
So what if we spent the money that we're about to spend on textbooks to pay teachers to write curriculum and do the research for exactly that kind of work?
You could absolutely do that. We could absolutely do that.
Would there be a cost benefit, and what would the educational value to our students be?
I'm not sure about a cost benefit. I think in terms of what it does for teachers around collaboration and around unit creation and around infusing things like critical thinking and creativity, I feel like it's a great investment. But because you'll be able to use the resources. I think it's a great that's always the best way to go. The time involved, it won't be next year where we'll have a new curriculum. We'll have the beginnings of a unit that's aligned It'll be 5 years, maybe 6. So what we'll do, let's take French, for example. They always teach a unit on household objects. So we could put together, and that's typically 6, sometimes 7 weeks. We could put together the lessons for household objects that would be used in 7th grade and begin to tweak it for what would happen in 8th. They'll revisit it in 9th and 10th, but we could start that work, if you will, but that's one unit.
Okay.
So it would be over time.
So long-term. and
Would it be
I-
worth it? Yes, it would be a benefit.
I know I'm stretching here, and I'm not an educator, so I don't know the value of the questions I'm asking, but long-term, it seems like we would have a better education. We would have teachers who were much more involved in what they were doing. And it sounds like we would be saving money long-term. Furthermore, I like the idea of doing that because it reduces the amount of paper and books that we're responsible for buying and maintaining. And because we're moving to a one-to-one paradigm, it makes all of that stuff much more portable. So I'm sorry to take up the time of the board, but this seems like a very important matter to get figured out, as we're talking about a pretty significant
chunk of change.
Yeah.
So something you should know also is that in our budget, the textbook line item is, we are reimbursed from state ed for that textbook line, 100%. So there's a piece of it so when you talk about cost benefit, there's tons of benefits to having teachers put their heads and hearts together and come up with great things for kids. But this money is reimbursed, so textbook funds are reimbursed from state ed.
So it boils down to the fact that if we went a different direction and didn't buy the textbooks, the entire cost of developing and maintaining that curriculum would then fall to the local taxpayers.
Correct.
I want to add another piece we do a lot of curriculum writing in the summer as it is, and availability, to have a really effective cadre of teachers is challenging, to get the same people during the same week to do this work, or 2 weeks. So that is ongoing. There are some areas, like in social studies, where we really are pulling together resources and teachers to do that work. It's a lot easier at elementary to write your own, but it's also a challenge. So I think if we had a system where all the curriculum was written by teachers, we'd almost need year-round school with higher pay to have that just be a part of the work in a different way than American schools are designed. Because it's that much work, that many hours, that textbook companies are basically doing that all the time. It's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say I do support the idea of professional learning communities around the content subjects and looking at like the critical thinking rubric and using these materials as a beginning base to then design learning opportunities that really are project-based and engaging and real life, authentic. And that's part of our plan for moving everything forward next year. That's part of our professional development plan, but it takes a lot of time.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, too. I was just thumbing through here, and on one of your, I don't know what it's called, the textbook adoption, where it's a rationale for it, it says that there is an online interactive student edition, and there is also an interactive reader, which allows students to read and record their voices and stuff. And then looking in here, it says middle school audio CD in the middle school bridging packet. So are the audio parts of it on CD, or are they available digitally online?
Both.
Okay. So are the CDs different from what's available online? It's just a
No,
different source?
it's just a different source. Not all schools are one-to-one.
Okay.
So they're marketing to as many people as they possibly can. So they have these audio recordings that they burn onto CDs that come in the packet, similar to a workbook. So workbooks also come with this, but you don't have to use an actual workbook anymore. There's an online version of the workbook, the same way there's an audio version of the CD.
Okay, but we're not limited to the CDs.
No.
So, okay, because with our Chromebooks that we have.
There's no CD player.
Right, okay.
Yes, no.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Okay, Barry?
I have a somewhat related question. We've talked about the languages before and the popularity, and I'm just curious, how does French rate as far as being a language that we have students looking for compared to other languages?
So I was really hoping Andrea Welty could be here tonight. We hired her 2 years ago, maybe 3, to come in and do our 6th grade LOTE exploration course. Since she's been here, our French numbers are growing, in part because she's a French teacher, so she teaches French 7 and 8, and she carries a passion for the language. Her husband is Swiss. She returns to Switzerland frequently. She brings back all kinds of, yummy things and has a cafe day and, exposes kids to the food and culture of France and French-speaking countries. But our French population is actually, at the high school, it's stayed the same. But at the middle school, it's increasing. So this year I have 3 sections of French 7 and 2 sections of French 8. Next year, I will have those 3 sections of French 7. I'll have 3 sections of French 8. I don't know how many French 7 sections I will have,
Okay.
but some of this programs are driven by people, and programmatically, she's moving this French program forward.
Okay. So what are we seeing when we get to high school, 9, 10?
9th grade, French 1, kids get French 1 credit in 8th grade. So French 1 is really for kids who probably weren't in our system or weren't successful in Spanish, coming in to take French 1. So really looking at our French 2 and French 3. We have kids finish out the 3-year sequence, French 2 and French 3. I have at least 1 or 2, I usually have 2 sections of French 2 and 1 or 2 sections of French 3 every year. Where French drops off, unlike Spanish, is in the French 4-5 AP. I only have 1 AP French 4 student next year, French 5 student next year. I have a few French 4, but after they get the 3-language sequence for the Advanced Regents Diploma, which happens after their 10th grade year, they typically go to something else, be that sciences or math or engineering or something else.
Okay. So kind of what we had discussed before. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That brings us to the K-12 guidance plan.
Okay. And this is really a discussion point. It is very much the same plan as last year. It was reviewed by the guidance counselors, psychologists, social workers. We're looking to spend some time on training days in a deeper way, really revising this plan. I mean, this is a compliance document, and there are new guidelines. So we really want to work with the new guidelines from state ed and do a big revision. But there's really not that much to report on. We just revised it to make sure it's
So we will get a
current.
report when it's revised?
Hmm?
If and when it is revised, we will?
I'll do a bigger report when it's really changed from last year. Yeah.
Okay, great. And while you're at the mic,
While I'm talking.
professional development plan?
This actually did change quite a bit, and it really, you've seen a lot of the information because the professional development plan itself is one of the things that is a compliance piece that Jonathan Costa talks about, because a lot of this is really embedded in the Coherence Strategic Plan. In fact, a lot of it is duplicated. So what we did as a whole committee, so this wasn't something I did in my office by myself, this is a sub-part of the district leadership team. We worked together not only looking at what is required in this plan, how do we make sure it's now aligned with the 4 Cs and with our coherence plan. So we did all that work together. And we also planned professional development for next year together with teachers, which has really not happened before. So now we have sketched out the entire plan for the year, including a lot of the elements that Greer was talking about. And so what's in the professional development plan is just those pieces removed that are now in chronological order. Here's what we're going to do over the next few years in terms of professional development and really incorporating critical thinking and the 4 Cs, along with the compliance pieces. You know, how many hours of this and how does it get recorded and who's responsible, so that this summer when I need to upload our professional development plan along with all the other plans to send to state ed, it's a fully compliant standalone document. The coherence plan has a lot of history and rationale in it, and it serves a different purpose. So
you have to do both. If we had our others, we just have the coherence plan.
Correct. But we
Still need
also,
to submit the professional,
I can't send
a
that
separate
big
document.
thing up there missing
Right.
a few of those
They won't
pieces.
accept the
and-
big thing. They just,
So, but it's cleaned up and aligned.
Anybody have any questions on? Okay, moving on to board subcommittee reports. Well, we did meet, personnel subcommittee met just before this meeting, do interviews for a new F&O assistant director. Any others? I've been away, so I don't know what else.
Technology met on Monday.
Okay.
We started walking down through a rather long wish list, trying to prioritize the items on the list for the next phase of the Smart Bond Act. We got partway into it and ran out of time. That's the last meeting that we have scheduled for this year, but that's okay because we're going to spend the first part of the Smart Bond this summer. It looks like it's in the final phases of approval.
You still bottleneck for SED and funding? Is that still a problem?
We broke through the most time-consuming step in the approval process, and now we're just waiting for the final stamp of approval.
Good.
However, the catch there is that they don't publish a schedule for the meetings where that final stamp is issued. It has to go on an agenda someplace. And
Okay.
So, but it seems very likely that that'll happen in time to support the summer rollout of a lot of this hardware.
Okay, great.
The other thing that came up during the technology subcommittee meeting is that we want to find a way to coordinate with the coherency planning.
Okay. Any other?
We had a meeting with the Special Ed Committee earlier this week. We reviewed, this was our last meeting of the year, we reviewed the status of the IEPs. It looks like, although the packages are a little bigger than normal, we will get done with them, all of them on time. And we also reviewed the fact that there are a couple of challenges still waiting to be tackled. They've had some late, if you want to call it, entering into the school district, quote unquote, with 7 days left of teaching. They had a student come in with an IEP, and they're dealing with that. And we learned something I was not aware of, is the fact that you can put a IEP on hold, but you can't put a 504 on hold. And the student, when this one student came in with the 504, it turns out the student has been moved around in 5 separate school districts in the last 3 months. So it's a challenging situation, but we reviewed and cleaned up and went over all the remaining issues with the special ed.
Okay. Gary?
Yeah, I would just report that it's not a standing committee, but group of us that are working on the request for proposal for architectural and engineering services met with, I think we had 4 different firms that did a walkthrough of multiple buildings. Some good questions, good dialogue, and we await their proposals. Also, I wondered, was anyone able to attend the Dutchess County School Board Association annual dinner? I wasn't able to be there, so I didn't know. Okay.
I was in Utah.
You were in Utah. I know, Doug.
All right, any other? All right, that moves us to the consent agenda. May I have a motion for the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
I have a question about something on the
Sure.
consent
Yeah,
agenda.
this is the time.
I don't understand what the contract for health and welfare services with Kingston City Schools is exactly.
Okay. You want to,
Yeah, so these are our regular contracts that we need to have both ways, because we have students attending private schools in other districts, and there are students here. So we bill other districts for students who attend St. Peter's, for example, and we are billed for Hyde Park students that attend Lourdes, for
So I
example.
ask this question over and over again, because these don't all happen at the same time. Is that what happens? We keep
Yeah.
getting these coming up?
yeah. Many
But-
times you see them at the organizational
okay,
meeting and you
that's-
see.
that's why I'm
boom,
getting
boom, boom.
confused. Okay.
There's a lot more on that one, but they do also come up.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
welcome.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That should bring us down to special ed. Hold on, I get down there. A motion for special ed placements, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dan? Special ed?
I've reviewed the packet, as I mentioned here, it's a larger packet than normal, but I recommend its adoption as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. I have a motion for 10.2 Omni Service Agreement reinstatement.
I had a question about that, too.
Well, let's get a motion first.
Oh, okay.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Now.
Discussion. Okay, yes. Again, I didn't understand what this was when I was reading it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that it came up, because we have had a really difficult time finding a leave replacement for an occupational therapist, finding an occupational therapist who's seen some of that. So we really had to go to a contractor. It's a lot more expensive. It's not what we want to do. That's to finish out this year, so you'll see it's not a huge contract. Our concern is if we can't fill the leave replacement for September, we're going to have to continue with contractual services to give families the services that we are obligated to. And that may be a bigger expense, and you may see a budget transfer, but we're still actively searching so that that won't happen. But we didn't budget to do a contract for OT. And that said, there's plenty of staffing money that we should be paying someone out of in the other line.
Are you talking about Omni?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
Yes,
welcome. We'll
thank
keep
you.
trying.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. I have a motion for 10.3 Marvin and Company re-up for our external order.
So moved.
Second.
That's not the
Any,
one that.
any discussion?
What-
Isn't that what that is?
Yeah, what's the one we had to have the majority vote on?
Oh, is that 10.3? No, it's what it was.
It's gone, oh, you,
Bond
okay.
resolution, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought it was something.
Hmm?
The bond resolution's the one we get.
Right, right. All right, all in favor? Opposed? We're skipping 10.4 because we deleted it, but not electronically. And we're back to public participation. I have a motion for public participation, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? May I have a motion to exit public participation?
So moved.
Have we asked if there's anyone that wants to make a comment?
Do you see anybody?
I see Roger.
Well,
Has Roger ever got up there and asked the
Well,
question? Okay.
Steve has.
We don't care about Steve.
Okay.
No. All in favor?
You're waiting for a second.
Oh, I'm waiting for a second.
I'll
Can I-
second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. We're back in open session again. We're back to, there are no other matters deemed necessary that I know of. Anybody have anything? No?
No, just read your email. I followed up just recently. Rick Party called me, and I followed up on an issue, and I emailed everybody.
Okay. There are 3 upcoming events. Oh, Wednesday, the 14th, 7 o'clock, FDR organ recital at the FDR Auditorium.
I'll be playing in that.
Ooh.
Very good.
Thursday,
We'll be there.
the 22nd, the next board meeting here at District Office, 7 o'clock. And Friday, the 23rd, is the FDR graduation. You will be there also. Yes.
Congratulations to our student
Right.
representative.
Thank you.
Best wishes.
There's no need for an executive session. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay.